Hey everyone, and welcome to Rambling Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and/or their cultural relevance. My name's Christian, and this is Batman in Detective Comics issue 36. Now, before we get into this issue proper, I want to point out something here with the artwork. I had mentioned that in the issue we looked at in the last part, issue 35, that the cover looked like it kind of looked like it was going to be potentially the introduction and the first story of Hugo Strange. However, it wasn't. It instead featured Batman trying to get back a ruby idol from some potentially problematic depictions of a Hindu tribe, cult. I'm not entirely sure what you'd want to call them. But part of the reason that I bring that up is because I think that the artwork, the cover of issue 36 fits the story of issue 35 much better, and issue 35 fits the story of issue 36 much better because issue 36 does kind of look like the guys Batman's fighting does kind of look like some of the characters he fought later in the story, and this guy in issue 35 on the cover of 35 does kind of look like Professor Strange. And as we're going to find out here, this is in fact the first story we're going to see with Professor Hugo Strange. Other than that, though, I just wanted to kind of point that out because I noticed it and I was like, well, that's really odd. I don't know if they were, um, confused somewhere in publication or something of that nature. But either way, of course, the story is once again by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. But yeah, let's get into it. We open the story with Batman doing one of his patrols where he notices a drive-by shooting, and here we have, just immediately I want to point out, the return of the skin gloves. Although, along with this, we also have our first appearance of Batman's gloves being having the sharp edges on them that we're used to seeing. Um, so I want to point out the return of the skin gloves because they're awful as always. But other than that, the art and what we're going to see with Batman here with his gloves and everything, especially, and his whole costume, are actually really well done. Batman consoles the man as he dies in his arms, issuing the strange sentiment, fog. Strange fog. Now, with this, Batman's able to find some identification of the man, and as he's doing so, as he's trying to figure out what's going on here, the police show up thinking that he, in fact, killed them. So Batman's off avoiding the police, now needing to clear his name of the murder, as well as trying to figure out what this is all about, the whole strange fog thing. As Batman does some research back at his home as Bruce Wayne, he realizes that this whole thing wasn't referring to like just a strange fog, but rather a man by the name of Strange, and he puts together pretty quickly that this is in reference to Hugo Strange. So he, of course, does some further investigating, realizes that the man who was killed was a federal agent, which was called a G-Man. And G-Man, I looked this up, G-Man was essentially a term for the like it was basically just a term. I guess it meant government man. It was essentially just a slang term for like somebody who's in the military, or in this case, somebody who worked for the FBI. Not entirely sure if he was actually, if he served. I think he did, but either way, it is not referring to the parody of the X-Men that was done in The Boys. But would be interesting if that was where the name came from. But here we have our first introduction to Dr. Hugo Strange, as we see the henchmen who killed the G-Man enter and explain that Batman saw the thing and basically might be on their tail to stop them. Strange explains about how, well, it's terrible that Batman's still around. He could, possibly, he's like our one real threat. But at the same time, at least the other guy's dead. He had all the information. He's not going to be able to pass on any information. So, we should be good on that front. We're going to go through with the plan as planned, and we see a fog envelop the entire city. Now, this fog basically makes it so that the police can't really see what they're doing, and criminals are able to commit crime easier. Something that I feel, if this story was, and as far as I know, this story hasn't been adapted um, for a modern retelling, but if it was, something I feel they could go more into detail about is why the fog. I mean, it is a thick fog, but why it's so, dangerous for everybody, essentially. We'd have people even complaining to the commissioner that basically they can't really do their jobs in the fog. Well, it's not our fault the criminals are getting away. And Gordon's like, you're gonna do your damn job. You better get used to the fog, because if this is the way things are now, we can't just let crime run rampant just because there's fog in the air. With crime running rampant throughout the streets, Bruce is back at home and hears on the radio that all sorts of thousands of dollars are being stolen, hundreds of thousands of dollars are being stolen from different banks, as well that a electrical engineer by the name of Henry Jenkins has gone missing. This unusual fog, everything happening here, Bruce realizes that there was a little book that the G-Man had, and the the places on that book are what are being knocked off, essentially. So Bruce decides to, suit up as Batman, do his thing, and start taking action. I do want to point out, I'm not entirely sure why he hasn't taken action yet, why he hasn't like actually started going after, more preemptively, but kind of waited until they've stolen these hundreds of thousands of dollars from different banks before he's like, all right, now it's time to go at us. Batman, it's like, bro, the fog and everything would have been perfect for you. Like, what are you doing? But either way. So the next target is the Sterling Silver warehouse, where a gang of mobsters, try to rob it just like they've done everything else. But Batman shows up and thwarts their plans, which we do have a really cool shot here I want to point out, where Batman is just taking everybody out here. But I do want to mention something. This is, I would say, kind of the start of where we're seeing Batman kind of being a little bit more jokey, a little bit more jovial, kind of more what you would expect from someone like Nightwing or Spider-Man, as opposed to Batman, the Dark Knight. As far as his like kind of quips and stuff that he's doing while fighting, it's only going to get worse from here. But it's very jarring to see this, especially from a more serious Golden Age Batman. I might expect this kind of thing from a Silver Age Batman, but you know, it was always a relatively common thing to have superheroes and just heroic characters to constantly like make jokes and kind of comments about their situation and stuff. We're used to, of course, today having Batman be very, stoic and quiet and keeping his thoughts to himself. When you read the comics, you might see like his little thoughts and such. But as far as like actually speaking out loud to the criminals and stuff, he doesn't really do that much. But we are seeing things here, like that last thing where we had, this is what we call a strike, and it's like, all right, come on. And then later he says like, sorry to spoil your party, but I guess I played too rough. It's like, all right, that's not really Batman, but it was Batman at this time, so it is what it is. With the gang defeated, we have a rare instance of Batman using a gun as he fires it to signal for the cops to show up. They arrest the guys, and Batman's off to thwart the next group of gangs, which is heading toward the Wolf Fur Company. It's like, I don't know, they make fur coats or something. It doesn't really matter what their business is or anything. Point is, Batman shows up, makes short work of the criminals, and again, I want to point out, throughout this fight, he's making comments and he's saying things like, this is so you won't forget to remember me, and you guys are a better workout than the gym, and it's like, come on, like this, it's just really, it's just really awkward seeing Batman say these kind of things. You know what I mean? It's only going to get worse once Robin comes into the picture later, but it's just like, what is this? Like this is like what I'd expect again from like Spider-Man or Nightwing or like, I don't know, Static Shock or something, but not that the Flash, Green Lantern, maybe even Superman, but not Batman. Batman's like dark and quiet and I don't know, it doesn't really, because that's his whole thing, right? He's mysterious and he like takes villains out quickly like a shadow and stuff, and he doesn't do the banter and stuff. But the banter and all that was a very common thing for heroic characters of all sorts for comics for a long time. So, you know, it is what it is. But Bruce is knocked out by one of the other henchmen and wakes up at Professor Strange's warehouse hideout, where I'm really not sure what Strange's plan is. He's just he wants to whip Batman, I guess, just to you know just to torture him before killing him. But we have yet another very strange moment where Batman once again breaks out of ropes by flexing his steel-like muscles. I gotta be honest with you. When I reading this comic, it kind of feels like whoever wrote him or whoever wrote this really had something, something going for Batman there. They talk about how he's this massive figure. They have him, having a little potential BDSM stuff going on here, and now we even have his rippling muscles. He got out because he's so strong and he flexed his muscles. This dark, massive figure. It's like, okay, hold, chill. Are you writing this with just one hand? You know what I mean? But either way, Batman, gets out by simply using his gas pellets. And I gotta say, especially in the early issues of Batman here, we really are seeing that just Batman is getting more use out of his gas pellets, I would say, than any other gadget he has. At least in these very early issues in the first year of Batman here. But Batman is able to tackle and beat down Strange. And again, we have another remark where he says, and this professor is for the little whipping incident. And I'm like, I'm not going to harp on it too much because it's just going to become more and more common. But it's like every time he gives these comments, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like Batman to me. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just very odd. But speaking of odd, with Professor Strange now beaten and tied up, kinky, he enters into a room where he finds a machine that, to me at least, looks straight out of Dr. Seuss. Like, this looks like such a weird, just not even like comic book sci-fi, just so wacky, so not. It's very odd, but not far from the machine, Batman finds the engineer that's been tied up, rescues him, and the engineer explains that essentially Strange had found out that he knew how to make condensed electricity, concentrated lightning, and kidnapped him. He forced him to make this machine because they found that, essentially the extremely hot lightning would cause condensed steam in the air, which they could use to make like a thick fog. A very convoluted way of saying, he forced him to make a fog machine, but you know, this is late 1930s. I don't know, maybe fog machines weren't a thing back then. Well, I looked it up, and apparently, in the 20th century, there were fog machines, but they were essentially harmful because they just produced smoke. It wasn't until the 70s that we started getting fog machines that we see now on, like, rock stages and stuff like that, right? But no, so fog machines did absolutely exist, and there wasn't any reason for this convoluted thing of not condensed, concentrated lightning caused fog. Like, just say it's a fog machine, bro. Either way, finishing out the story here, Batman just simply explains that Strange used the fog machine to create, well, the fog, so that this crime wave could happen and they could basically loot the entire city. So, with Batman's help, the engineer is now able to shut off the machine, the sky is cleared, and we have this nice little moment here where, at the end, the citizens are recognizing that Batman had done this as the radio reports that Batman basically saved everyone and now had the fog lifted. And we have this cute little moment where a kid even asks his dad, like, who is the Batman? And the father just says, a great man, son, a great man. So, this was the first version of, as well, of Batman having his, I don't want to say introduction to the public, but his moment in the limelight, if you will. In I want to say in The Dark Knight. I've only seen it once, so forgive me here, but I think Like that was where they had the whole "I'm not the hero the city deserves, but I'm the one it needs," or maybe that's the other way around. And I don't really remember. I don't. So hot take. I don't really like live action Batman at all, like any of the live action Batman movies. Um, I much prefer animated and comic Batman. I don't really care for live action Batman at all, but we'll discuss those when we get to them later. Um, the point is, this version, they've done this whole thing of Batman kind of coming into the public and having recognition and being known and recognized as like a hero for the city and stuff. In the Batman, the 2004 TV show, they had it where it was after he defeated Mr. Freeze for the first time, and in the Batman, the 2024 or no 2022 movie, um, it was after the flood and all that, right? And he guided everyone out with the flare and everything. But that is probably my favorite live action take on Batman. Though I do like the Michael Keaton one fair enough as well. I never saw the one with the Batman v Superman, the DCEU stuff. I never saw, never cared for that. Eventually, I'll get to that, but either way. Um, Point is, the whole thing wraps up with we don't have Doctor Strange dead, of course. We have the radio announcing that Strange is behind bars and will probably remain there for the rest of his life. Obviously, Batman fans, we know that he doesn't, in fact, remain there for the rest of his life. But, this is our first. He's not, I wouldn't say he's an A-list villain, but he's pretty high up there. He's been in most Batman adaptations. He's been in the animated series. He's been in the Arkham Asylum game or the Arkham series games. I think he's been in Gotham, um, like the TV series. I don't really know what else he's been in, but he's not exactly the Joker, but he's a pretty big villain. So yeah, that's the end of the issue. And I mean, we had our introduction to Doctor Strange. We have our for like officially we have Batman having the jagged edges on his gloves, things of that nature. But other than those things, not too special. Well, no. I mean, from here we also have, of course, like I said, the moment where Batman is now officially recognized as a hero for the city and everything. So, I would say while the plot itself, the villainous plot was kind of lame, but again, I would like to see it um, adapted and modernized, if you will. It was also, it was a pretty good issue, and it did introduce some key things of Batman that will carry on and be important for the mythos moving forward. So yeah, I'd say overall it was a good issue, definitely worth your time. But as always, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more. Subscribe, ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like, and if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.